Hello BookTube. Today I'm going to be talking about my master reading plan for 2023. Yesterday Steve Donahue had a video talking about his master plan for 2023, and he essentially tagged everybody to do a similar video if we have reading plans for 2023. And Steve's video was inspired by a video by Criminali and Michael K. Vaughan. And if I remember, I will leave links to all three of those videos in the show notes down below. So, one thing that I've noticed about my master reading plan for 2023 is that it involves a lot of rereading. There are a number of books that I would like to have a second go at, either because I loved them the first time I read them or because I didn't care for them at all. And also, another thing I've been noticing is that I want to pay closer attention to the books that have been on my shelves for a long time without having been read, and really making a decision whether or not I do want to keep them or eventually send them on, however that happens. I'm still working on that. So I started 2023 with a massive reading project. I read the entirety of Fairy Tail by Hiro Mishima the first 16 days of January, and I had a blast. Fairy Tail is one of my favorite mangas, and rereading the whole series in a little more than 2 weeks was magical. I loved it. From there, I have 3-year-long reading projects, one of which is from BookTube, Historathon. And then my two personal reading projects, which I've talked a bit about, are the 10 Contemporary Classics I Must Spell Redeem, which is a reading project inspired by KD Books and Steve Donahue. So late in December, or maybe mid-December, KD Books released a triptych of videos, 10 Classics You Must Read. The first one was to 1899, the second was 1900 to 1999, and the third was post 2000. And Steve Donahue followed along. He gently poked fun at some of Kieran's choices, and others have since joined in too, also occasionally poking fun at Kieran's choices. But when it came, and I also added my contributions, but when it came to the contemporary classics, I had a brick wall. I really didn't have anything off the top of my head that would work. And then Steve Donahue's version, there were 4 books that I had read. So one of them was Pretty Industry Station by China Miéville, which I agree with Steve on. That is definitely a contemporary classic you must read. But then The Amazing Adventures of Kavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon, White Teeth by Zadie Smith, and Ducks Newburyport by Lucy Ellmann, I have bailed on. And that got me thinking, well, what other 7 books to make the 10 candidates for a contemporary classic have I bailed redeem? And should I give them a bail redemption? And that sort of started the genesis of 10 contemporary classics I must bail redeem, which is one of my 2 personal reading projects that will go throughout the whole year, although I might be doubling up because the later part of 2023 have some nonfiction heavy stuff that I really want to focus on. So I do want to clear out these 2-year-long reading projects. So I don't know exactly how that's going to go. We'll see. And then the second one, the second personal reading project that would be year-long was I selected 12 books. Initially was 6 fiction, with the breakdown being 3 literary fiction, most of whom are recent acquisitions, and 3 fantasies that have been on my shelves for a while that I've been wanting to get to. And then the other 6 would be history, some that I've had for a bit, but mostly not, since my history collection is relatively new. But then Historathon happened, so I moved those 6 works of history to Historathon and added 6 more works of fiction, 3 literary fiction, and 3 fantasy. Largely, I think, in this case, they were all ones that have been on my shelves for a while. So the idea initially was to read 1 book a month, but then once I get to the monthly breakdowns, you'll see that towards the end of the year, particularly in October and November, I have other reading plans that are going to take precedence. So I'm going to be doubling up, which is what I've done. So moving on to month by month. So January was largely devoted to my personal reading projects. Of course, 2 weeks was devoted to Fairy Tale, and then Historathon and my 2 personal reading projects, the 10 and the 12. February will largely be, I guess, a free month because there's no booktube events that I know of that I want to participate in, except for Steve Donahue's own book club. I will be reading A Distant Mirror by Barbara Tuchman in February, as well as a few other histories. So it's going to be a bit more history heavy than this month has been. And in March, and then also I will do one of the 10, because I've got 5. I originally had just 2, but then I've added 5, so I have like 5 more to pick up, which I will need to do in the coming months. And then 2 from the 12, because I am kind of doing like 2 books a month from the 12. And in March, I'm devoting it to March of the Mammoths, because there is a Mammoth book that has sat on my shelves for well over a decade now that I really need to get to. And so I'm devoting March to March of the Mammoths. There's also 1 book from the 12 that's would qualify for March of the Mammoths, and 2 books from the 10. So I will do those 4, plus maybe add a work of history, because I really would like to read a long work of history in March too, but I don't know if I'll get to it. It depends. And then in April, I want to do something with poetry. I have my mind to do a poetry project, although I'm not entirely sure whether I'll just read like 1 big collected edition of poetry, or collect a huge amount of slim volumes of poetry like I did last year. And I also want to participate in Aussie April, but that's up in the air right now. May, I'm going to wait to decide what booktube events pop up in May to decide whether or not I want to get involved in that. June, there is June on the Range, which is a booktube event created by Michael K. Vaughan. And I don't know if I'm going to participate fiction-wise. I did last year with Lonesome Dove by Lyric McMurtry, and I hated it. So, and I don't have any other Westerns. So I might fudge June on the Range and maybe read a history of the Western United States in the 19th century. July, I do have another personal reading project that I started last year that I would like to continue, which is Reading America, where I read some American literature. Hopefully I will have better luck this year than last year. So I'll read some fiction, some poetry, some drama, maybe a history if I can work it in. August, there is Garbagas, which was created by Criminali. I would like to participate, but I don't know if I really still have that much garbage that I haven't already gotten to. I need to work on that. And also, I have my own back to school reading project, which was inspired by a reading event created by Doris in 2020, Doris of Aldi Books, that I really love. And I sort of recreated it for myself last year. And I would like to try it again. I don't know if I will do a more nonfiction centric version or a more fiction centric version, depending, I guess, if I want to clear things out, and or if, like, a more targeted class, because all of these classics related videos it's got me wanting to sort of go back to the classics or canonical works, but I don't quite know for sure. I need to debate that before I make a decision, and I'll do a specific video for the Reading America, the Back to School, and March of the Mammoths around the time that March, July, and August happen. September, I think might be a free month right now. I know Steve Donahue mentioned something about Snake Timber. Where are all of these booktube events coming from? It's like there was a huge number. I'm like, what the heck? So I might maybe, if I remember, pick up a book about snakes in September. There's also, I think maybe the final season of Space Opera September might be happening. Although I don't know for sure. SFF 180 really hasn't mentioned much about it lately. So I don't know if I would participate, since I pretty much haven't gotten any new space opera in lately. My interest in science fiction and fantasy has waned the past few years, and that's definitely in the collecting phase. I think I only picked up one work of fantasy that wasn't manga last year. So I don't know. Because if I did participate, it would either be rereads or Bill redemptions, or really the more well, not really would work. But yeah, it would maybe not necessarily. Some of my choices would by force not match with some of the prompts, depending what those are. But anyway, but also in September, I will be looking to add or start collecting books for the Kindle Prize. Last year, I started reading along with the Kindle History Prize, and despite some hiccups, I really enjoyed it, and I would love to do it again. I have been looking for a book prize that I could follow that wouldn't disappoint me, and I think I've settled on the Kindle. So September and into October and November, I will be devoting mostly to the Kindle Prize, which is largely why I'm trying to double up on the 12 and maybe even the 10, so that I'm finished with them before I get going on my Kindle Prize reading. And then, of course, November is Nonfiction November, which is my favorite booktube event, and I'm definitely participating. And then in December, I think that'll either be another Bell Redemption December, or maybe a free month to just wrap up if there's anything I missed, or maybe I could book in 2023 with another massive manga reading project, although nothing to the scale of Fairy Tail, because the only really big series I have that I've committed myself to collecting all of is Naruto, and I'm not even 10 volumes in with that, so there's no way I will finish Naruto, like collecting Naruto, by the end of the year. So it might be something more like Death Note, or Nabari no O, depending if I get going on them. Or I might just decide on something else. I mean, I'm trying to allow my plan to be a bit fluid so that I can, and supple, so that I can change and kind of add things as needed rather than have one strict reading plan, because otherwise I will probably end up bailing on everything, as I am sometimes want to do when I have these grandiose reading plans. But anyway, BookTube, that was my master reading plan for 2023. If you would like to do something similar, and if you want to consider this a bit of a tag, well, you're tagged. I will be back later this afternoon with weekly reads. And I still need to figure out what I want to read tonight. I don't know if I'm going to do maybe a Bell Redemption or start on something else. I don't know. You'll find out tonight. Anyway, I will be. Oh, let's hold up and stop rambling. Okay, so that's all I got for now. So thank you, BookTube. Have a great afternoon. Again, I will see you later this evening with the weekly reads. So until then, thank you and stay safe.